Picture this. You're deep in a jungle, inside a dark, humid cave. The air is so thick it's hard to breathe, and all around you, skeletons. But then, in the gloom, you see a glimmer. It's the shine of pure gold. And this isn't some Indiana Jones movie scene, no. This is the very real and very bloody legend of Yamashita's gold.
So here's the big question, the one that kicks this whole thing off. Is there really a lost World War II treasure hidden somewhere in the Philippines worth over $100 billion? I mean, that's a number that's almost hard to wrap your head around, right? Is this whole thing just a myth that drives people mad with greed? Or is there a very real and very bloody fortune still out there just waiting to be found?
Okay, so to really get into this legend, we have to start with the man himself. The man whose name is stamped all over this story. General Tomoyuki Yamashita. This guy was no joke. Back in 1941, Yamashita pulled off what military experts thought was completely impossible. He had his army ride bicycles through these dense, brutal jungles and captured Britain's supposedly impenetrable fortress of Singapore in just 70 days. It was a stunning victory that earned him his infamous nickname, the Tiger of Malaya. But as we're about to see, his military genius was put to a much, much darker use. Yeah, because the treasure we're talking about, this wasn't just soldiers grabbing what they could find. Oh no. This was the result of a highly organized, systematic, and absolutely brutal operation designed to plunder an entire continent. It even had a code name, Kin no Yuri, which translates to the Golden Lily. And get this wasn't some rogue general's idea. The operation was allegedly led by Japanese royalty, Prince Chichibu, the emperor's own brother. And their goal? Well, it was chillingly ambitious. They wanted to steal everything of value from all over Southeast Asia, not just to fund the war they were in, but to set up Japan's economic dominance for the next 100 years. And when I say they stole everything, I mean everything. The sheer scale is just staggering. We're talking thousands of tons of gold bars ripped from national banks, priceless ancient artifacts from museums, solid gold Buddhist statues hauled out of temples. They even pried gold teeth from the dead. I mean, they literally stripped entire nations of their cultural and financial soul. But then the war started to turn. By 1943, American submarines pretty much owned the Pacific, and they were sinking Japanese cargo ships left and right. It became obvious that trying to ship all this loot back home was basically a suicide mission. And that's when a fateful decision was made. If they couldn't get it to Japan, they were going to hide it. And this is where the story gets really dark. Because the plan to hide all this gold was, on one hand, an absolute engineering marvel, but on the other, it was carried out with just unimaginable cruelty. So they built over 175 major treasure sites, most of them in the Philippines. And we're not talking about just digging a hole and dropping in a chest. No way. These were incredibly complex tunnel systems, some going 200 feet deep. They connected them to natural cave systems and then rigged the whole thing with deadly booby traps. Bombs, poison gas, and even flood tunnels designed to fill with water and drown anyone who got too close. You see, Yamashita knew that for a secret this big, the greatest risk wasn't a lost map. It was the people. The engineers, the laborers, anyone who knew where the gold was buried. And he had a truly horrific solution for that problem. What they did was just pure evil. Okay, so once a vault was full of gold, the Japanese officers would gather all the engineers and prisoners of war who had built it inside the tunnel for a supposed farewell party. Then a high-ranking officer would quietly slip out, and just moments later, dynamite would be detonated, sealing the entrance forever. They buried them alive. The keepers of the secret were entombed with the very gold they had just finished hiding. Now, for decades after the war, this whole story was just dismissed. People called it a myth, a fool's dream. But then, in 1971, one man made a discovery that changed absolutely everything. A discovery that proved the treasure was terrifyingly real. And that man was a guy named Rogelio Roxas. He wasn't some famous explorer. He was a humble locksmith in the Philippines who happened to be an amateur treasure hunter. He got his hands on an old map from the son of a Japanese soldier, and he and his team started digging. For months, they dug near Baguio City. And what they finally found inside a hidden tunnel system, well, it was beyond belief. What did he find? A 1-ton, solid gold Buddha statue. And if that wasn't enough, its head could be removed, and it was filled with uncut diamonds. He also found chests packed with gold bars. It was the discovery of a lifetime. But his celebration didn't last long. Word got out, and it reached the Filipino dictator at the time, Ferdinand Marcos. Marcos's men showed up, seized the treasure, and then had Roxas arrested and tortured to find out if he'd found more. Okay, but the story doesn't end there. Years later, Roxas took the Marcos estate to court in the United States, and in 1996, the court ruled in his favor. They legally affirmed that yes, Roxas had found the treasure, and yes, Marcos had stolen it. The judgment awarded to his estate was an absolutely astonishing $22 billion. And just like that, Yamashita's gold went from being a legend to a legally recognized fact. So that leads to the obvious question, right? If the treasure is real and Roxas only found one site, what happened to the other 170-plus vaults? Well, the hunt is far from over, and it's now wrapped up in conspiracy, superstition, and a whole lot of mystery. When you dig into it, you find there are pretty much two prevailing theories about what's going on. On one side, you have the curse. This is the local legend that the treasure is protected by the vengeful spirits of the thousands who were buried alive with it. And on the other side, you've got a massive geopolitical conspiracy theory involving the CIA. So the conspiracy goes like this. The CIA secretly found and recovered billions of dollars worth of this gold right after the war. But, of course, they couldn't just announce it. Think about it. This is the height of the Cold War. Having an off-the-books slush fund of that size would be an absolute game-changer. The theory alleges that this money was funneled into something called the Black Eagle Trust and used to fund covert anti-communist operations all around the world. And that really brings us right up to today. To this day, treasure hunters are still scouring the jungles of the Philippines and Malaysia. They're driven by greed, by adventure, armed with metal detectors and old, faded maps, all hoping to be the next Rogelio Roxas. A lot of them come back with nothing. And some just disappear, becoming the latest victims of what the locals still call Yamashita's curse. So in the end, we're left with this incredible story. An unimaginable fortune stolen at an unforgivable human cost. It's a treasure born from the plunder of entire nations and sealed with the blood of thousands. And if so much of it is still out there, buried in the dark, it leaves us with one final, really haunting question. Who truly deserves it?